Aloha. Thank you for tuning in to episode number 33. My name is Christina Estrada, partner of Booyah Marketing, where we have deeper connections. Today, our returning honored guest is Suzanne Kellner-Zinck with 30 plus years of experience working in mental health, specializing in holistic healing through hypnosis, helping clients quickly address the root causes of emotional illness when traditional mental health approaches have failed. Public speaker, author, podcaster, a mover and a shaker, setting souls free to live their purposes on purpose. How are you, Suzanne?
Very well, Christina. Great to be with you again.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, tell us about the work that you do healing anorexia and bulimia clients.
Well, it's actually really fascinating work because when we're dealing with these folks, we're dealing not only with, shall we say, their body dysmorphia, which means that they see themselves as being a lot fatter than they actually are, especially the starving anorexics who see themselves as fat, even though sometimes they're just skeletons if you actually look at them as an objective observer. And then they have the whole thought processes, that really cause a lot of problems for them. The reason that they don't eat is because they're fearful of getting fat, but that's not all there is to it, actually. It goes a lot deeper than that. And actually, what we have to understand about mental illness in particular is that there's the reasons why these things develop. They don't develop for no reason. And this is what I have to tell people constantly, especially parents with kids who don't understand this stuff. It's not there for no reason. It's the subconscious mind's way of creating a defense mechanism to protect the person from a really bad, sometimes horrific, scary places that they were stuck when they were young and they didn't have any control over themselves or their environments. In the case of eating disorders, it's slightly different between anorexia and bulimia. Actually, it's really different. But in any case, with anorexics, it's really about them not wanting to grow up. They're very happy when they lose so much weight, they no longer have their periods. They don't want to get pregnant. They don't want to have sex. They don't want to be adults. Pure and simple. Because to them, being an adult is scary. The other thing is that they are very perfectionistic and they expect the people around them to be perfectionistic. So I have to tell them from the very get-go, no one is perfect, including you. So you'll need to be okay with being imperfectly perfect instead. That way, people will relate to you and you'll
Mm.
know that they actually like and or love you for who you are instead of some facsimile fake person that you're putting on because you're trying to people please them, because that's the other thing that they do. Because they had to create a safe space for themselves and they didn't ever know if their parent or guardian was going to be, I don't know, in some cases they're in really well-paid jobs. They have a lot of stress and tension on them, and they'll take it out on their kids when they get home. Sometimes they have alcoholism.
Mm.
A lot of times they have alcoholism and sometimes drug issues, but more likely depression. And a lot of times this can run in families. So mothers in particular can have anorexia and pass it on to their daughters. Not necessarily genetic, I don't believe, but more as a matter of a behavior they pick up because they see it from the time they're very young. And the younger we are, the more likely we are to sort of bring into our lives those, shall we say, feelings, behaviors that we see in the environments that we're living in or working in.
So, how did you find yourself working with these fragile and challenging clients?
It's a very interesting thing. I didn't look for them, that's for damn sure. I always had an interest in them because I had a sister. Well, I have a sister, she's still alive among us, whose best friend was a nursing student at Duke University. When she came home for winter break, she was upstairs helping my sister paint her bedroom, which was basically the eave part of the upstairs of the house.
Mm.
And they were painting it from lavender purple to sort of a light blue color. And Lori, that was her name, her jeans were basically falling off of her. There was nothing but a skeleton left of her when she was there. It was pretty scary, but I was too young to really understand what was going on at that time. Soon I learned the reality of the horrors of this disease because what happened was her parents forced her to go back to university to continue her studies. So that was like right after Christmas break. And it wasn't that long after that that she contracted pneumonia because her immune system could not fight it off, and she died of the pneumonia secondary to her anorexia.
Oh.
Then I was in high school, and there was she wasn't a classmate of mine, but one of the students was walking around and she was losing her hair really, really thin. She was having problems. I didn't really know her that well, but it was pretty obvious that was what was going on with her. And again, when I was in college, undergrad, billions of years ago now, there was a nursing student who I believe dropped out because of her anorexia. So when I got a call from Carolyn, my client, my first eating disorder client in 2005, she was telling me that she saw my smoking cessation brochure that was tacked to one of the walls at Harvard University, where she was doing summer courses in Russian literature. She was moving from pre-med, both her parents are doctors, to Russian literature, interestingly enough. And she realized that she probably had some stuff in common with smokers, because she had rituals and things that she really didn't want to have anymore. So when we were on the phone, I asked her about those rituals, and she explained that she would go to the 7-Eleven, walk around it a few times, get a loaf of bread, go across the street to her apartment, put down a bunch of newspapers, and then one by one, put a slice of the bread in her mouth, chew it up, and then dump it on the paper on the floor, and then throw the whole mess out when she was done. She wanted to stop doing that. She didn't know why she couldn't stop doing that. Well, there were more issues that we had to contend with, like a boyfriend that was using her to pay the cell phone bill. I don't know why he was over in France during the time I was working with her, doing a foreign exchange type of experience where he had, I think he was on the fourth floor apartment and he had a balcony, and he'd call her and tell her that he was suicidal and was going to jump off the balcony. To which I told her, if you're having that many problems, I have enough of my own. You need to get yourself some help. End of story. Cut it off there. Well, so happened, she did help him to move from France to Yale, where they both went to school. They moved from Harvard to Yale, and then she dumped him. Very smart move. So you can see that there's boundary issues there. You can see that there's a bunch of different things that needed to be taken care of. I have to say that she's 5'9", had the most beautiful blue eyes, long, I would say, darkest side of blonde hair. And she had a beautiful, perfect bikini body, all 5'9" of her, yes. And when I started working with her, she's sitting in the recliner chair, and I'm standing over her, all 5 foot of me. I look tall when she's sitting, of course. And I'm looking over her and I say, Darling, how would you like to become a non-anorexic? Because, these doctors and mental health professionals, they really do think they're God and goddesses, but I'm here to tell you they don't know what they're doing. Obviously, you've been through 3 programs. They don't know anything. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here with me, would you? So how do you like to become a non-anorexic? Because a non-anorexic no longer has the thoughts and behaviors of an anorexic. They have normal thoughts and behaviors. How would that work for you? And she looked up at me, smiled, and she said, Really? Yes. And that was my first eating disorder client. Then, shortly after her, I had 2 right in a row bulimic clients come in. And they came in because they knew it was their subconscious mind that was causing the problems. And they're both really worried because of all the purging that they were doing, throwing up the food and stuff, that they would end up with having irreversible damage to the gastrointestinal system. And they didn't want that to happen. Very smart. These people are very smart. And they're also very artistic. Every single one of them is in some form of art or some kind of cultural something or other to do with creativity. In any case, one of them, she's so funny, she comes in one day, she sits in my recliner chair with her legs overhanging one arm and her head against the other arm, right? Sort of leaning into the back of the chair, kind of, if you can picture that. And she says to me, Suzanne, I'm really glad that we did that thing with the hand thing, because that was how she described parts therapy, because I was able to use it to help myself. I'm like, what? How did you do that? I thought we had to facilitate it or it wouldn't work. You just taught me something really cool and really new. How awesome is that? And that's why I love working with these people, because they're really smart and they teach me things I never would have thought were possible. And they're just doing these really cool things. Going back to Carolyn, she wanted to know why, after we were done doing all the work, she was always hated food. And it was very interesting. So in her case, she said, can we do that negative removal thingy that we did before? Can we do that? Because I want to find out why I always hated eating, because I never understood what that was all about. I said, sure, what a great idea. I never would have thought about that on my own. All right, let's go do it. Yeah, and it only takes a matter of a couple of minutes. And that's where he found out when her anorexia actually started. It didn't come into being until she was 19 in terms of the symptoms, but it began when she was 2 years old. And what happened was she was in one of those chairs. You see them sometimes in restaurants where they're sort of hooked under the table and they're
Yes.
held up that way. Both of her doctor parents were shoving oatmeal in her face at the same time, and she couldn't move. And she was stuck in that chair. And that's when she made the decision that she hated eating and she wasn't going to eat unless she chose to. At 19, she developed full-blown anorexia, and she went to an inpatient and two outpatients, and they got her to a healthy weight. But as you can see, she still had a lot of other emotional problems that I helped her work through. So that's how I got into it and why I was interested in it. But each one of them, it was very interesting, one right after the other, as I was working with them, told me, you need to teach the folks who work with people like us how to help us heal because they don't know how to do it and they hurt us. And they do. So I found this program, Master's in Instructional Design and Technology. I had no idea what the hell I was getting myself into, none. But I knew that that would be the course I needed in order to put together this training so it would actually make sense and it would work for people based on learning theory and whatever the hell else needed to be done with quizzes and all the appropriate stuff that a real training has. So I embarked on this 18-month-long journey to learn how to put together this training. I was very lucky. I had a wonderful professor from that get-go who really was very intrigued by what I was doing and really wanted to help me do it. And he helped me set it up correctly from the beginning. And all my professors in that program are really, really wonderful in so many ways. Wish I could say the same thing about my doctoral program, but that's a different story unto itself. In any case, it took forever from 2005 until, I don't know, when the hell did I do my technology? That was my last master's degree. So I think it was, I got out of Israel in 2021. So what year are we? 2022, like 2022 or 2023 for a year and a half to get that. And I'm finally putting it out there for people to actually be able to learn from me one-on-one how to do this stuff so they can do it correctly. Because I'm going to tell you right here, right now, there's people I've retrained in hypnosis and NLP because they don't have any freaking clue what they're doing because their trainers did not train them appropriately in how to do this stuff. And if you're not trained appropriately, you're not going to be able to replicate my results with my clients, most especially the fragile people known as anorexics and bulimics. You have to know how to do this work and you have to do it what we call ecologically. That means good for the client, good for me as the interventionist practitioner, and good for the world at large. Otherwise, you don't want to be doing this stuff because it can cause problems. I don't give a damn what anyone says. All hypnosis is not self-hypnosis because you can be told to do things and your body might take things the wrong way because you're talking to basically the subconscious mind, which is your amygdala and your hippocampus. Your amygdala is where your emotions reside, and your hippocampus is where your memories reside. They're very imperfect. The younger you are, the more imperfect they are. And what happens is, if you have someone who's very charismatic, like Hitler or like Jim Jones, horrible things can happen. So don't sit here and tell me that people cannot be hypnotized. The whole COVID thing was a master class in how you hypnotize an entire population of all the Western countries, except for me, because I wasn't willing to live in it anymore. So to do what they want to do things that were against their best health and well-being, as we have found out with all of the really horrific things that have happened to people, especially when they told these idiots that they shouldn't aspirate the needles. So therefore, this crap is going into people's bloodstream, which means it went through their blood-brain barrier, and that's why people had problems with their memory and with Alzheimer's-like dementia-type symptoms, Bell's palsy, and all the rest of it. That doesn't even count the disgusting blood clots that they found at the morgues when they're trying to embalm people. So all I'm trying to tell you is you want to choose to work with somebody who actually knows what the hell they're doing with these tools and techniques because it can be a problem. And that's why it's my responsibility to make sure these people clear up all their garbage before they basically what we call projected onto the clients and patients because they don't even know they're doing it. And they do that as with each of the techniques with me. And then I teach them how to do it. And then they go and they do it with their patients. And I mentor them for 12 months so they can message me. And then I have a little call with them and I tell them the right order to do this stuff. And we go over the techniques that they need for that particular thing. And then a week later, I get a thank you message. It actually worked. Bingo. That's the whole point. Because a training is about being able to perfectly emulate what you've been trained in. It's not a workshop, it's a training. You have to be able to do exactly the same kind of work and get the same results as your trainer. Otherwise, it's not a training, in my estimation.
Wow. So, speaking of training, can you tell us about your training, your everlasting eating disorder eradication, healing hope for long, healthy lives?
It's a really long title, but it says it all. And it's also an alliteration, so you got to freaking love it. No, I didn't think this up on my own. Uh, Perplexity was my buddy on this when I was going through developing the marketing for it. And I just like alliterations because they're easier to remember.
Hmm.
So this is, of course, the training that I developed based on the instructional design technology master's degree that I spent 18 months in to create, to develop it so it would work. And really, it has been based on learning theory for adults because adults learn very differently than kids. They need certain things done very differently than kids. Like, for example, all of these people are going to be at least master's level trained individuals that have gone through school and know certain things. So that's going to be respected to the degree that any of that stuff has to do with what I'm teaching them. And some of it does overlap, but a lot of it they're going to have to forget because it's harmful to people in this situation. And then it's about being able to immediately put into place the performance learning objectives, which means they learn how to do it right there with me. And it has to be something that is applicable and usable and meaningful to them in the moment, or they're not going to care about learning it. These are things that I learned in this training. Who would have known this if you didn't take this training and learn about learning theory for adults? I mean, seriously. In fact, it was really funny. One of the projects we had to do in the training or in the master's program was to put together, I don't know, some kind of training on what we were going to do, right? And I don't work in any corporation. I fired them all out of my life. I don't know, when I was in my 20s when I decided, based on my dad telling me that you either own your life or it's owned by others. And basically I wasn't willing to be owned anymore by a bunch of idiots, in suits who wanted me to pretend to be something I'm not, which I'm not willing to do, as you can frankly understand here. So if you want someone who's willing, will tell you the truth, I'm your person. If you want to be, I don't know, babied, I'm definitely not your person. In any case, I I realized that I needed to work for myself. And some of the people who work in mental health work for these really large hospital, university places, and they're going to have to figure out either how to get away from these idiots because they are harming people with the lack of care that they're giving and giving endless toxic drugs, because when you have mental health drugs given to you, it is assumed wrongfully, based on my 25 years of experience working in hypnotism, that they need to be on the shit for the rest of their lives. No, they don't. If you actually know how to heal them in their subconscious mind and transform them where that needs to be done, they don't need that shit. They just don't. And I prefer my clients not be on that crap when I see them, because the clients will complain that the drugs make them dull thinking, meaning that they can't remember things. It's hard for them to put things together. I need people to be able to think really quickly. It's very important, especially when we're doing timeline therapy, which is a form of neuro-linguistic programming. Neuro-linguistic programming, it's like really, really fast. And then the other thing is that their emotions are really dulled, and I need them to feel their emotions, because so many of these people have these really high defense mechanisms because they had to protect themselves, and I got to tear all that shit down so they can feel, because you can't have a real relationship with another person unless you have empathy, and the way you can have empathy for another person is to have feelings, including the negative ones. And they yell at me after I bring back their feelings because I don't know how to deal with them. So I have to help them learn how to deal with their feelings and understand their feelings are like pain. They're there to teach them something needs to be addressed. Or they're going to find themselves mentally ill or physically ill. And unfortunately, for too many women, they create autoimmune illnesses, which the doctors have no fucking clue how to help them with, or shall we say cancer in very, very many cases. So this is the reality of the situation. And frankly, I can't really think of anything more fulfilling than helping a kid be able to let go of all too deadly disease. We lose 52 anorexic bulimic people every day throughout the world. Almost every country has this problem. So it's about damn time these folks learned how to actually help people heal and move on in their lives, because I know that you, if you're a practitioner in mental health, would want that for your child, certainly for yourself, if you had the option. So how about we give that option to our patients and, in my case, clients, because I'm not licensed and never will be, because no association is going to tell me what I can and cannot do with my clients. It's none of their business. They pay me. It's between us. No electronic records for anyone to find out anything about their diagnosis is no one's business, and that's the way it needs to be so they can heal and move on with their lives. No one needs to know any better. And that's my thing, and I stand by it. I have philosophy.
Wonderful. So for more information, I'll put it complete we'll put it down in the link below in the description box. So mahalo nui loa, Suzanne, for your time. Any parting words you would like to say to the viewers?
Stop believing what these mental health providers are telling you. They're basically, there's a word for it. I can't think of the word. They are basically not inculcated, that's not really what I want, but they're taught to believe that people have to be mentally ill forever. They're taught to believe that they know better than their mentally ill clients. And I'm here to tell you, mentally ill clients are very insightful, even the most sickest of all of them, because I've worked with, I don't know, paranoid schizoaffective. Doesn't get worse than that, I don't think. And he's doing fine, by the way, because even before I got into hypnosis, I got his butt out of a program that was basically killing him, and I got him off the drugs that were causing problems by getting him into a new program, because that's the way I advocate for my clients. I don't take no for an answer. I go over everybody's heads. I don't give a damn if they're mad at me. And I don't know, 20 years later, he's doing just fine. Thank you very much. Living on his own with a roommate. Whoever thought? Because that guy was paranoid of all his roommates when he was in the program with me back in 1994. Yes, it goes back to 1994.
Wow.
And I know that he's doing fine because I happened to bump into one of his roommates at the time in a supermarket produce section, and he noticed me because I don't look like most people. And he told me that Sean is doing really great. And let me tell you, I'd do it all over again in a second for him. He's a really heart-centered person, and I promised his parents I'd get him the hell out of that program. I had no clue how. I was a brand new counselor on the lowest level, but I was going to figure it out because that's the way I do shit, and that's the way I handle my clients. And that's how you learn, grow, and help people move on. There's no excuses.
Great. Well, mahalo. I'll put Suzanne's information down below in the description box. Please click the subscribe, notification, and thumbs up. If you'd also like to donate to the channel, we appreciate it. It helps us build our content. My name is Christina Estrada, partner of Booyah Marketing, a hui ho. Until we meet again. Transform your ability to help anorexic and bulimic clients in just 3 intensive days. Transform your ability to help anorexic and bulimic clients in just 3 intensive days.